There's a kind of man every woman thinks about when she's alone, but she doesn't text him. She doesn't call. She just worries about him. She checks if he saw her story. She rereads his last message. She wonders, why hasn't he called? And that worry, that silent unease, it's not born from games or manipulation. It's born from presence, from the way you show up and then disappear with peace, purpose, and self-control. See, most men today are chasing, over-explaining, over-giving, desperate to prove they're different. But here's the truth. When you stop making her your center, when you become a mystery with depth, a man grounded in purpose and not performance, her heart begins to notice your absence in a way your presence never could. That's when you know you've touched something real. The kind of worry I'm talking about isn't fear or anxiety. It's emotional tension, a hunger for clarity, the sense that she could lose something valuable, that she may have to earn you. And that flips the script. If you're tired of chasing, if you're tired of giving more than you get, if you're ready to be the man who lives with peace, power, and presence, then listen closely, because I'm going to show you exactly how to become the man she worries about losing, even when you say nothing at all. Let's talk. There's a fine line between being emotionally elusive and being emotionally absent, and most men cross it without even realizing. When I say emotionally elusive, I'm not talking about ghosting her or ignoring her feelings. I'm talking about not being so easily available that she stops valuing your presence. It's about creating just enough space for her to wonder what's going on in your world and if she still has a place in it. See, women are emotional creatures, but they don't chase what's always in front of them. They chase what they feel slipping away, what they can't fully figure out. The moment you put your entire emotional world in her lap, she no longer has to work to understand you. And when there's no mystery, there's no magnetism. Being emotionally elusive means you're intentional with your energy. You don't dump your entire day on her. You don't bleed your emotions to seek validation. Instead, you share with control, with depth. You drop clues, hints, a subtle glance, a short message that sparks curiosity, instead of giving away the whole story. But listen closely. This is not about emotional games. You're not withholding to manipulate her. You're doing it because your emotions are sacred. You don't pour them into someone who hasn't earned your vulnerability. And the moment she realizes she has to earn more of you, that's when the worry starts to kick in. She starts asking herself, does he still like me? Is he drifting? What is he thinking? And suddenly you're not just a man she talks to, you're a man she feels. That's the key. Emotional elusiveness doesn't disconnect her from you. It pulls her in. It invites her to lean forward, to engage, to invest, because she senses that your heart isn't up for grabs, it's guarded. And if she wants access to it, she's going to have to come closer. So don't be afraid to hold some things back. Be honest, but not exposed. Be warm, but not overreaching. Because when you master this balance, you don't have to ask for her attention. Her heart will already be chasing yours. There's a kind of silence that screams louder than words. It's not cold. It's not distant. It's controlled, intentional. It's the silence of a man who is not desperate to fill every space with his voice just to be heard. He doesn't explain himself to gain approval. He doesn't rush to respond just to keep her interested. He knows his value isn't in what he says, it's in how he holds himself. Most men today talk too much, not because they're confident, but because they're insecure. They explain, over-text, overshare. Why? Because they're afraid if they don't, she'll lose interest. But a man of quiet confidence, he knows the opposite is true. He knows that silence builds tension. It creates space for reflection. It signals power, because when you're calm and composed, it forces her to lean in and wonder what's going on in your world. Purposeful silence isn't about shutting down. It's about choosing when to speak and when not to. It's when you respond to a message, not instantly, but after you've lived your day, when you listen fully without interrupting, when you walk into a room and don't need to dominate the conversation, because your energy already does. That's what women notice, not the man who's loud, but the one whose presence is felt even when he says nothing. It's magnetic, it's mysterious, it's powerful. And yes, at first she may feel unsettled. She'll wonder why you're not always available, why you're not over-explaining like every other man. But slowly, that wonder becomes worry. What is he thinking? Does he still care? She'll start watching your actions more closely, craving any small signal of what's going on inside you. And that's when you become unforgettable. The secret is this: don't speak to prove who you are. Let your silence speak for you. Let your energy, your boundaries, your calmness be your loudest message. Because when you can sit in silence with peace, while the world around you races to be seen, you don't chase her emotions, she chases your stability, and that, right there, is where the real power lies. A man who has no boundaries is a man who cannot be respected. And here's the thing, most women won't tell you directly when you've lost their respect, but you'll feel it in her tone, in her distance, in her silence, because deep down she's not wired to crave the man who gives her everything. She's wired to respect the man who guards himself. Boundaries are not walls. They're not about pushing people away or being cold. Boundaries are standards. They are quiet declarations of self-worth. They say, I know who I am, I know what I allow, and I'm not afraid to walk away from anything that disrespects that. When a woman meets a man who upholds his boundaries, she feels something powerful, security, and paradoxically, a bit of fear. Not the toxic kind, but the emotional tension of knowing that this man doesn't need her, that he's not afraid to say no, that he will not tolerate manipulation, disrespect, or chaos, and that makes her take him seriously. Let's be real, most men fold the moment emotions get intense. They let their standards slide just to keep the peace. They let her push limits because they're afraid of losing her. But you can't inspire love by abandoning yourself. If she crosses a line and you say nothing, you're not being kind, you're being forgettable. Let your boundaries be felt. If she cancels plans last minute, don't pretend it's fine. If she's disrespectful during a conversation, step away, not to punish her, but to protect your peace. Because the moment she realizes you're not like the others, that you have a quiet code you live by, one that isn't bent by emotion, she'll start to question everything. Did I push him too far? Did I lose him? Why isn't he reacting like the others? And just like that, the emotional weight shifts. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to over-explain to be understood. You just need to hold your line. And when your boundaries are clear and calm, you won't have to demand her respect. She'll offer it willingly. There's a reason a man who can be fully present, but isn't always available, haunts a woman's mind long after he leaves. It's not because he played games. It's because he made her feel something, and then left room for her to miss it. Presence is a gift. It's when you're with her and your eyes are locked in, your phone is down, your attention is undivided. She laughs, and you notice. She speaks, and you actually listen. You become a mirror of emotional connection. You're not just there physically, you're really there. And because that kind of presence is so rare, it leaves a mark. But here's where most men get it wrong. They think more presence equals more desire, so they overstay. They hover. They call, text, show up constantly, and in doing so they dilute their magic. You see, true impact is in the contrast. A powerful presence must be followed by a graceful withdrawal, not ghosting, not disappearing to make her chase, but stepping away with peace. You go back to your mission. You focus on your craft. You spend time alone. You let her sit with the emotional weight of your absence. And in that space, she reflects. She starts wondering, where is he? What is he doing? Why do I feel his absence more than I ever felt someone else's presence? That's when she begins to worry, not because you manipulated her, but because you left a real impression. A man who can show up fully, then step back calmly, is a man who's centered. He doesn't cling. He doesn't overcompensate. He knows that mystery isn't in hiding. It's in the rhythm of emotional connection, followed by confident detachment. So be intentional when you're present, but be just as intentional when you step away. Your silence should never feel like punishment. It should feel like purpose. And the more she senses that your world moves with or without her, the more she'll want to be part of it. Because at the end of the day, a man who can walk away peacefully is the one who never really leaves her mind. There's something intoxicating about a man who has depth, but doesn't throw it in your face. A man who feels deeply, thinks profoundly, lives intentionally, but never begs to be seen. That man doesn't just attract a woman, he lingers in her mind. In today's world, most men try to win attention by oversharing. They mistake vulnerability for dumping. They unload their entire life story on a woman in the first week, thinking that it'll build connection. But here's the truth. Mystery isn't about hiding who you are. It's about letting someone earn access to it, slowly, authentically, on your terms. Depth, real depth, is like a beautiful cave, dark, quiet, sacred. You don't drag someone in, you invite them. bit by bit, moment by moment. And the more she feels like she's discovering something new in you, the more invested she becomes in the journey. You want her to worry. Let her realize she still doesn't fully know you. Be honest, but not needy. Let her see glimpses of your passions, your fears, your dreams, but only when it feels right. Not because you're trying to create connection. Trust me, the less you force it, the deeper it hits. Women don't crave the man who tells them everything. They crave the one who leaves them wondering, what else is in there? What is he not saying? Why do I feel like I've only scratched the surface? You see, when you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. When you stop pushing for closeness, she starts pulling for more. And that tension between what she knows and what she doesn't, that's where desire lives. So let her discover your depth over time. Give her a reason to lean in, a reason to think about you at night, replaying conversations, dissecting meanings. Because when a woman realizes that you're not trying to be known, that's when she starts to want to know everything. And that, my brother, is when she begins to worry, not because she's insecure, but because she's realized you're not like anyone she's ever met before. If there's one trait that will separate you from almost every other man she's met, it's your ability to detach with dignity. See, most men crumble when emotions rise. One cold message from her, and they spiral. One delay in response, and they lose sleep. One shift in energy, and they're already planning how to win her back. But you're going to do something different. You're going to feel, but not react. Emotional non-reaction doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've matured beyond the need to prove your worth every time you feel doubt creeping in. It's the strength to walk away without a scene, to pause when she's testing you, to let silence hold space instead of rushing to fix what doesn't need fixing. A woman begins to worry when she senses that her pull no longer shakes you, when she throws confusion your way and you stay calm, when she gives you less and you don't chase more, when she thinks you'll argue, plead, or break, and instead you step back with quiet clarity. That's when her mind races. Why isn't he reacting? Did I push him away? Did I go too far? You create worry not through aggression, but through calm indifference, not coldness. Centeredness, detaching with dignity, is power. It says, I care, but I won't beg. I feel, but I won't lose myself. I see what's happening, but I know my value, and I won't compete for what should be freely chosen. And that energy, that's unforgettable. Because when you're the man who can step back, who doesn't argue, who doesn't spiral, who simply lets go with peace, you become the storm she can't predict, the story she replays, the man she worries about, because deep down she knows she might have just lost someone irreplaceable. So walk in peace, love fully, but never at the cost of your emotional dignity. And when the moment comes to detach, do it not in anger, not in bitterness, but in quiet power. Because the man who can walk away without noise is the man whose silence echoes the loudest in her heart. So here you are, listening, watching, and maybe something inside you is waking up. Maybe you've been the man who overtexts, who overgives, who waits by the phone, hoping she'll notice the effort. Maybe you've been the man who reacts, who explains too much, who begs silently through every "Are you okay?" or every late-night check-in. And still, she didn't worry. Still, she didn't chase. Still, she pulled away. Let me tell you why. Because she never feared losing you. She always knew you'd stay. But now, that version of you is gone. You're becoming the man who understands his value so deeply, he no longer negotiates it. You're becoming the man who doesn't raise his voice to be heard, who doesn't react just to feel relevant, who doesn't cling when space appears. You're becoming a storm wrapped in calm, a mystery wrapped in kindness, a leader of your own emotional world. And when she feels that shift, when she realizes that the man who once reached for her is now rooted in himself, that's when she begins to feel something she didn't expect: worry. Not because you punished her, not because you played games, but because for the first time, she can't read you, and that unknown is louder than anything you ever said. So walk in your power, speak less, mean more. Live your purpose, let silence become your punctuation, let space become your strength, and let her come to you, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but out of a deep emotional realization that you're not the kind of man she can replace. You don't need to chase. You don't need to explain. You just need to become the man whose presence changes the room and whose absence changes her. And when she finally feels that tension, when the worry begins to whisper in her heart, she'll realize she should have held on tighter. She should have asked deeper. She should have chosen you when you were still choosing her. But now you choose yourself. If this message hit home, don't stay silent. Drop a comment, share this with a brother who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because this channel is for the men who are done chasing and ready to become unforgettable.